Okay, good morning, everybody. Shane B here, coming to you live from my office in downtown Westerly. You're watching Talk is Cheap with Shane B. And the show is still going strong because COVID is still around. So if you've been watching our show from the beginning, it did start when COVID started. Basically, we wanted to talk with people. I just need to turn some things off. There we go. Talk with people who are taking action during COVID-19. Pushing forward, getting things done, doing what needs to be done to push their business, themselves, their families, whatever it may be, forward during this, because we still have to live our lives. And as we're starting to see phase one and then phase two, the reopening happening around the area, these things are really happening. It's getting real. So this morning, I did want to, in my opening monologue, talk about that a little bit. And just so we can have a conversation about where things are going. Number one, we do need to start opening the economy. I firmly believe that because the government can only support business and individuals for so long. You can only print so much money because the rent always does come due. Now, with that being said, I was thinking about this for the past week a lot. In 2 months, those emergency unemployment benefits are going to run out. Now, that stimulus package, that bill is going to end. And as we all been watching the news and listening to the experts, realizing that we could potentially see a second wave in the fall. If history is any teacher, which as we all know, it pretty much usually is, going back to the influenza pandemic of 1918, that's exactly what happened. It disappeared for a little bit and it came back in the fall even stronger than it was. So that's been getting me thinking, what is our plan? Not if, but when that does happen. And not to be doom and gloom, we need to plan for this stuff. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. So what is our plan when that does happen? Yes, we have a plan for reopening because it is the summertime and we need that money coming in. But how do we find that delicate balance of keeping everyone safe, but then opening the economy at the same time? So, pushing forward with the plan, with the amounts that restaurants can be open, have their inside open, what percentage of their capacity can they seat people and things like that. We're learning as we go. That we do understand. The big thing I am concerned about is the economic fallout moving forward. Like I said at the opening of the show, right now we're getting by because we do have essentially the government helping the country out. So that's kind of what we need to start these conversations and start asking these questions and trying to figure it out, because just hoping it's going to go away and never come back has never worked in the history of mankind. We have to take actions. So on that note, Ben, let's bring in our next guest, someone who is taking action during COVID-19. We have Pastor John Savage. John, how you doing today?
I'm well, Shane. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being on the show. This is great.
All right.
So you are a pastor up at Carolina Free Baptist Church. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, because of course in Rhode Island we know we have a Carolina, we have a Wyoming. Where actually is Carolina?
First of all, you have to clarify that a lot of people in Rhode Island don't know there's a Carolina.
That's true.
We lived in Rhode Island previously, moved down to Indiana so I could go to school, and we came back to Rhode Island. Shortly after we came back, I got the call to be the pastor at the Carolina Church, and I told some friends of ours, "Oh yeah, I'm going to pastor in Carolina," and they said, "Oh my gosh, you have to move down south again." No. Carolina is a village that is just settled halfway between Charlestown and Richmond. It's right down near the Octagonal House on Route 112. The church has been in existence since 1866. I have been there since December of 2007. 40 to 50 people on a Sunday. The building was built in 1845. It's just a traditional rural Baptist church.
Nice. Must be some really nice woodworking in there. I was a carpenter for many years, so I always admire woodworking and
Yeah,
carpentry.
I mean, there's a lot that has had to been replaced over the years, so there's not a lot of the big moldings and the coped crown moldings or anything like that. So, but it's a, churches like that, especially from that time period, the insides were relatively boxy. They try to make them as ornate as possible. There's a stenciled chair rail that goes around the building, but I mean, it's a very traditional rural Baptist church.
Gotcha. So, of course, you have been affected, and your congregation has been affected during this whole thing.
Yes, sir.
So, when this did happen, and you started, actually, I don't know what your timeline was with virtual services, but are you doing those? And if so, when did you start doing those?
Okay, yeah, I began doing. I've never done virtual services ever. I had never put anything that I had done on the internet previous. Now, what happened? The last service that we had at the church in person was March the 15th, and it was the day before March the 15th, the 14th, where Governor Raimondo had, in passing, made a mention that she thinks church services should stop for a while. But that's when things were really starting to pick up steam with the number of cases. I said, let's see what happens. She hasn't totally made that definite, so let's keep going. During the next week was when she began to say, look, no gatherings of 10 or more. And that's when I realized, okay, well, things are going to have to shut down. So I'm 47. I think I missed the whole internet thing by maybe about 2 or 3 years.
Just barely, yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'm in the right age bracket for people who would be very adept at it, but I didn't put a whole lot of effort into learning what it meant to have a camera in front of me, to be savvy with getting things online. So I said, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. I made a YouTube channel for the church. I said, I'm going to put on the worship services. We're going to try to figure out what that service is going to look like. We're going to put it out there, and we're just going to let people watch it whenever they want. And then as the days went on, I realized, people in my congregation are now separated from each other. And there are people in the congregation who the church is the only family they have. And then the seriousness of what was going on became evident. So I actually began adding things that I was putting online. We used to do a Sunday service and a Wednesday night gathering. So then it became, I'll tape each one of those, but now I'm going to add other things to keep people connected to the church. I do something on Tuesday morning and Friday morning now, so that at least people in the church can remain connected to teachings and prayer and scripture study and things like that in a virtual way.
Right.
But I think the problem that isn't so much thought about, and I saw this happen, was that there are a lot of people who just simply do not have internet access. They don't have a computer. Yes. They don't have a smartphone.
And that didn't become apparent until this whole thing happened, when you realize, wow, there's a huge segment of the population that does not have internet access, or they have very limited internet access.
The rumblings of it were there because we try to keep everybody connected by email. So if something goes on in somebody's life, we can at least send out an email to everybody all at once and let them know. And as that goes on, you get things, oh, I don't have email, all right? I don't have a computer or a smartphone. Oh, okay. So I know that I need to email this out, and then I need to make some phone calls to people. Well, now if everything's happening online now, all of a sudden, the workload of keeping everybody connected and making sure everybody's safe has multiplied exponentially. So,
exactly. So you're seeing the power of live streams now, especially with keeping in touch with your congregation and friends and family, for that matter, too.
Well, again, it's live stream. I have not, in a proper sense, live streamed anything. And the reason why, number one, the church doesn't even have internet access. But number two, I watched my colleagues struggle with, you have a live stream worship service, and you're putting this worship service out there, and then all of a sudden the internet goes down.
Well,
Well,
trust
now
me, I've
what?
been there.
So you know. Yeah, well, you
Oh
would
yeah,
know. I mean, here you go.
live streaming. I've been doing it
Excuse me.
professionally now for about 2 years, and yes, I have. Just when I think I have hit every single pitfall and challenge I could possibly hit, a new one appears that I didn't even see coming, because this industry is so new. And I think, especially during COVID, people right now are being extremely forgiving with the technology, because now they're involved in it. They have to be on a Zoom meeting, or they're going to be in a live stream, or they're FaceTiming with a friend, and they're seeing the pitfalls now. So now they're understanding that it's not like when network TVs go live, like at a football game on Sunday, where they have $1 million worth of equipment, satellite trucks, and backups upon backups, where it's tough. When we put the stream out there, once it leaves our computers, we just hope for the best, because there's nothing we can do. It's beyond our control. So
never mind paid staff and producers and editors and sound people. I mean, those are things, when you think about the learning curve of live stream technology, a lot of the pastors who have been put into this situation, they're older and less savvy than I am. So now we have all of these guys who've never done this before are now buying equipment, learning equipment. They're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, while at the same time having to do a lot of manual work to make sure people are staying connected, because they don't have the skills, and a lot of their people don't have the ability to access them. It's been a real challenge.
It certainly has. Yeah. And this is part of, just to talk economy a little bit, because I'm kind of focused on that right now. This is why I love capitalism, because when something like this does happen, then all of a sudden people who have the skill set can now offer their skill set to churches and things like this and other people, to help them with their live stream and help them get their message, or whatever they're trying to get out to people. And it keeps the economy going, because now, if, say, for instance, using us as an example, we can help this church get them online, they can now keep in touch with the congregation. And of course, with anything, it's marketing to a degree. You're keeping in touch with people, and it's going to keep the ball rolling. So when you do open your doors again, people are going to be coming back in too.
Yeah. Economy for me is my world tends to get very small, because of the nature of the work that I do. I'm usually focused on either my immediate family or something going on in the church. And because the church, I mean, properly speaking, because we're not really a business, there's a lot. How do I put this? Because we're not really a business, there's a lot of things about marketing and advertising and media presence or internet presence that has completely escaped me.
Right.
So again, I think the economy is, our money, all of our money comes in from people making donations. So that's actually been good. You're right. So people have been very good on that end, but church has to think like a business in this day and age.
Yes. And you did say that. I agree with you 100%. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's been the challenge all along of trying to be the church, is that we're a religious organization. We're technically supposed to be separate from legislation. We're supposed to be operating independently, operating within the laws of the land, but also operating independently of how we take care of our own affairs. We're not meant to be an organization that is for profit. Right. And that's not only in this day and age, but historically. So now we find ourselves in a situation, and this has been the trend in the church for a long time, is to think and structure the church in terms of a business. And when there are ethical concerns about that, and I know I'm dragging on. When those concerns happen, it becomes well, how much are we supposed to be advertising? How much are we supposed to be spending on technology and things like that? So
it's finding that delicate balance to where
the role of the pastor has, at least in this generation, been defined by understanding demographics, understanding technology and communication, understanding marketing and trends. And that's probably an area where I've spent most of my time thinking about what the heck am I supposed to be doing? I'm in Carolina, Rhode Island. I mean, I just, people don't know where this is.
Right.
So, do you try to make Carolina a church that fits in with the general scope of the larger society, even though it's a town of 250 people? Or do you just, or do you resign yourself to being ignored and not even noticed because you're so small and you're just so far out of the loop?
It's interesting. The way you just described that was exactly how an owner of a business or a CEO thinks about their company. The same things they have to think about: demographics, how do we reach our core demographic, or if you want to steal some terms. And I also understand that, especially when you have an institution as old as religion on this planet, adapting it with modern business techniques, I'm sure people are wrestling with that, trying to figure this out. Is like you said, the ethical concerns or the morality of it. So how do you handle that?
I mean, Jesus himself said you can't serve God and money. So he draws this extremely hard line between you can live like a spiritual person and have spiritual values, or you can give yourself over to trying to make a profit. Yeah, I mean, is that not the perennial concern? We're trying to be spiritual people in a material world. So
You see this comment up here.
I see this comment that Ben put in. Now, Ben and I have known each other for a while. It's funny. You mentioned about churches staying on top of technology and taking advantage of the technology that is now available, and that's been growing because of the situation that we've been in with COVID-19. And my immediate reaction was, well, yeah, you can take advantage of all that stuff if you're quick enough.
That's it. You got to be ready. Yeah.
I mean, Ben got on me for weeks and weeks and weeks. John, we can do this. We can tape you. We can set it up. It'll be great. We'll live stream it. And I kept saying to him, no, hold on. Just let me see how this plays out. Let me see what happens. And we'll take it a step at a time. And then when at last the governor said, we're shutting everything down, the next day I called Ben. I said, Ben, I'm ready. And he said, I can't help you. I'm too busy. It's not his fault. It's just it's
while the iron's hot.
Well, what are you going to do?
I've been preparing my company for this moment for a year because I knew live streaming was or is the technology that was going to propel us into that next paradigm shift as a race because of the communication factors. I knew it. I didn't know when. COVID-19 was the catalyst to propel live streaming, to make it an everyday technology, because that's the thing. It has to be adopted by society as a whole before it really gains traction. Because before this, it was trendy, it was a fad, it was a way for a business to do some quirky marketing and keep in touch with that segment of the population which was adopting it. And now we're here, so you have to strike while the iron's hot. And
these types of technologies, they have existed for a while. And I remember now, seminary for me was 15 years ago. And I can remember very specifically sitting in seminary classes and talking about this very type of a situation where church services were being put online, where Bible studies and teaching times were being put online. And the concern, even at the time, people were worried that Bibles were being put online because, well, now people aren't going to be bringing their own Bible to church. They're just going to use the internet. Yep. And the worry at that point, 15 years ago, was the same thing we're talking about now. For the large section, we can use this technology to disseminate teaching, and we can reach more people and things like that. And on the opposite end, it was, but at the same time, we're taking away from human interaction within local congregations. And we're turning local congregations into these sort of far-reaching ministries, when in reality they were set up originally to just deal with a particular community.
Exactly. And right now we have 2 churches we're helping with their virtual services as clients. And what they're finding is it's not just the local community. Now they're getting people who've moved away from Westerly, who used to go to that church, and now Oh, we have someone here from Messina, Italy. That's
in
great.
Italy.
And now they can reach those people. So they're people who grew up in Westerly, moved away, are now tuning in. People who belong to a different parish, but don't have virtual services. So now they can tune in and they can get a virtual service here. So it's, the law of unintended consequences. We're seeing things that we never thought would possibly happen. So, like you said, you can reach people and bring them together virtually.
The YouTube channel that I set up for the church, I've got about 35 videos posted on it right now, with a total of about 1,260 total views and over 320 unique visitors.
That's really good.
I can tell you, it's pretty impressive, and it gives you an idea of the reach that is possible.
Right.
We get maybe anywhere between 30 and 40 to 45 on a typical Sunday. So to have 300 people coming to your channel, wow, that's pretty impressive. Right, and I'm not sure if this is within the scope of your show, but the idea that now the market for pastors, and if people go to a church and they don't like their pastor, they can go to church and say, well, I'll sit here for an hour because, hey, you got to go to church, but I'll go watch somebody else.
And that now, but no, it's just true. Now we're seeing capitalism, in a sense, is taking over. The market is dictating what people want. And like you said, you're going to see pastors competing.
Yeah.
And good or bad.
That is the nature of capitalism. The market dictates what's going on, and we need to continue generating revenue in a steady and increasing way so that we can create more jobs and better products and things like that. So it's the church has not been immune to that. Mm-hmm. You've seen over the last 30 years, 40 years or so, the proliferation of the Christian music industry, the rising of the Christian publication industry. Now there are movie studios making movies specifically generated for Christians, to the point now where even Islam has started saying, maybe we can do this as well. Maybe we can also use these same types of technologies. We in the church, the Christian church, you could always go to the store and buy cassette tapes of kids singing, church songs. And now you can see that for young Muslim children as well. So, religion and capitalism historically have worked together in a way that I'm not sure is necessarily positive. You can argue that, the message is getting out, but at the same time, capitalism is about generating revenue. It's not necessarily about putting out a message that maintains to the historical traditional message that the religion is teaching.
Yes, that's a great point. And I'm a
And again, I don't know if that's within the scope of your show. And I'm sorry.
We talk about everything. It's the way it is. It's just society now. So we'll talk about everything. And I've said this numerous times. I'm a capitalist to my core. I also believe capitalism needs to police itself from the outside as well as the inside. Yeah. When I say police itself, I mean, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we need to be, number one, looking inward. Is what I'm doing? Is it morally and ethically proper? I need to look at my friends who are also entrepreneurs. I'm like, okay, well, are they doing what is proper? So in order for it to work, it needs to have that human element watching over it. Yeah.
And I think that is the problem that has kept rearing its head.
Yes.
Who gets to check it? Yeah. If capitalism is about generating revenue, then the question becomes, well, to what end, or at what cost are we going to continue generating revenue?
Right.
And it's unfortunate when you begin looking at the history of industrialization in America, how long it took people to get child labor laws put into effect, how long it took businesses to begin offering health insurance to their people. It's an extremely, if the bottom line is supposed to be getting larger, then you have to figure out ways to keep that bottom line larger. And sometimes that can, or actually, arguably, most times it comes at the expense of the people who are working.
That is true. And that's, of course, again, that falls on the leaders, as the owners and doing proper leadership,
Right.
how do we find that delicate balance? And that's
Right.
when, because many great things come out of capital. What we're seeing right now, the rise of live streaming. There was a need in the market, and it's being filled. Which
And it
is
is, and in this day, that is extremely important because the push is for we're being separated by law.
Yes.
We're not supposed to be in contact with each other. We're supposed to be meeting in groups of only certain numbers. So now the people who have been developing this technology over time, yeah, it's revenue generating, but they are doing a really valuable service.
Oh,
right
for everybody, exactly. Every company who is getting this technology out there. And again, then the competition, which is another, in my viewpoint, another pro of capitalism, because now we have many people trying to accomplish the same goal. And now that competition is going to bring out the best in everybody. So the end user is going to get the best product possible.
Yeah.
Now, of course, sometimes competition gets fierce. Sometimes it gets really nasty. And again, that's where we as leaders need to understand that we need to start doing this properly. What is the best way to get there, and the best way to get there for everybody? So it's that delicate balance. It's really difficult, especially when you're dealing with money and power. It's tough.
The push is either towards money or towards, in my view as a religious leader, those two areas of gain and spirituality demonstrated through love, compassion, and generosity. Those things are at war with each other and have been at war for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, when I'm being offered chances to increase the reach of my very small congregation, and I'm being offered technologies by which to do that, I have to temper that with the idea that I was called specifically to be the pastor of this very tiny congregation, and that they are my primary focus. So the pull between this being my primary focus, and this is not a lucrative position that I'm in, versus expanding in a way that will bring attention and perhaps revenue and a proliferation of the message. Those two things war with each other. Mm-hmm. Because of the purpose of why I was called in the first place. I was not called to be a pastor to create a media presence. I don't believe that was my original calling. My original calling was because these people, this group right here, needed somebody who was a counselor and a teacher and somebody who could care for them and focus on this particular community.
Gotcha. So you're finding a new role that's been added to your already long list of roles.
Yeah, and getting back to your comment about unintended consequences, the purpose of being online was to keep my people connected. And then all of a sudden it became, wait a minute, I don't know where all these other people came from. So this is a different thing. And a question came up on the screen, can't a calling change? Well, yeah, I mean, it can evolve.
Yeah, there you go.
And certainly it hasn't been my vision to create something larger than what was going on in at least Rhode Island. But yeah, of course, callings can change, people change, and situations change. But
yeah, I like the term evolve, because that's exactly what happens. Our environment, our surroundings are constantly changing. That old saying, the only constant is change. And I love that saying. So we do have to adapt and evolve based on our environment. And I tell you, in the last 100 years, this has probably been the largest environmental change that we have had. When I say that, I mean personal environment around us. Yeah. And we're going out, 10 weeks now? And no end in the foreseeable future.
10 weeks.
Yeah. So it's that term new normal. And here we are. And I think everyone is doing the best that they can to get through this. So actually, I do have a quick question. Through all of this, how have you been coping? What's your number one go-to coping mechanism?
Staying off of the internet.
That's probably good.
Well, I mean, I've made comments, trying to deal with reopening strategies and trying to deal with what I refer to as the ocean of opinions that exist in the world about what the nature of this virus is, the nature of government intervention, the nature of medical intervention. everybody has an opinion on the matter.
It's true.
And, you know, even at the beginning, in my own personal experience, watched various authoritative bodies contradict each other. And so I had to say, okay, so then clearly I need to stand back. I need to stay out of the fray. And I need to remember, for coping, you know, I'm still a person. Like, I'm locked down, but all my family's home. So we're a family. We can be together. We have dinner together every night. We can talk. That's been trying to keep the life that has remained constant. Try to keep that as normal as possible. We weren't people who went out to dinner very much. We don't go on a lot of big vacations. And we do a lot of work around the house. So in a lot of ways, my life hasn't changed. My personal life hasn't changed very much at all.
Right.
So I'm still, that's been the coping, is that I found those things that remained normal, and I focused a lot on those.
Oh, there you go. It's a good way to do it. Nice. Yeah. So what is your reopening strategy for your church?
Okay. So Governor Raimondo let us know last week and a half ago, that on May 31st, she was opening religious organizations to meet at 25% of their worship space capacity. So over the last week and a half or so, it has been a matter of making sure, can we get masks? I think we're going to actually have masks to be able to give to people. We're not a huge congregation anyway, so I'm not planning on huge numbers. I took a head count of people who wanted to show up. If you do not feel comfortable showing up yet, then don't. I'll keep putting things online for the time being. You know, this is not about forcing anybody into a situation that they feel uncomfortable with. This is about making sure that everybody's at their comfort level. Now, that creates a lot of work, and it creates a lot of running around and asking questions and things like that. But I mean, the church exists to help people. Right. We exist because we've experienced the love of God. We're going to show the love of God. And one of the ways we do that is by making sure that we're not just forcing people into situations where they don't feel safe. And I think it seems obvious and should be obvious. But a chunk of my congregation will not be there on Sunday, and that's fine. As time goes on, as people get more comfortable, maybe they'll want to come back. If they don't, we'll keep putting things online. But there's a psychological element to all this. People have been locked down. Some people really want to get out.
Yes.
We want to get back to church. Fine. We've been given the clear. Let's do it. No problem. Other people, not yet. No problem. So it's not as though there's a strategy necessarily, as much as there is, hand sanitizer, masks, cutting things short and keeping things short so that we're not all in the same room together, making sure windows are open. Things like that are just kind of general. That's been the general rule of everything reopening. But in terms of a strategy, let's keep people safe, but let's make sure everybody's at their own comfort level too.
That's a great way to put it. Awesome. So Pastor John Savage, thank you, from Carolina Free Baptist Church, our guest today on Talk is Cheap. Great show. Appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
Not a problem. All right. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, you there? All right, there we go. So that was a great show, folks. That's how you do it. That's how you talk about religion on a morning talk show. One thing that has happened during COVID-19 is you're seeing a lot of people now. Well, people's attitudes have changed. I've noticed people, even though we've been locked down for a long time, people are really trying their hardest to be as nice as they can to everyone around them when they are going out in public. Yes, we have to try a little bit harder, because 10 weeks, we're going to be going on 11 weeks on Monday, with no end in the foreseeable future. Yes, we are reopening. It's been a challenging time for us. One thing I do believe, we've gotten closer as a race, as a human race, because we're all in this together. That's one thing, just coming from the restaurant industry myself, that's always happened because I've been a seasonal bartender for the better part of my adult life, traveling around the country, just having fun and bartending and working, is when you get thrown into these situations as a group and you get through a very stressful situation together, you come out stronger on the end and become stronger as a group. So that's one thing that I'm sure is coming out of this, as well as all this technology that we're using for live streaming. It's been a lot of fun. I'm honored to be able to have a show and people are watching me. I mean, who am I? I'm just a local guy who has a vision, who wants to get out there and live stream. So again, thank you to everyone out there who's watching all of our live streams. Thank you to Ben Barber, our producer, who's been producing all of these high quality live streams. Okay, I'm watching the comments come in. Ben is busy. He's doing something else right now. He just let me know. So let's keep pushing forward, everybody. We're going to do what we're doing our best. The summertime is coming, and we're going to try and get through this together. And I'm just watching some comments that are coming in real time. So on that note, thanks for watching Talk is Cheap. We're going to keep this show going into the foreseeable future. We're going to be going live from the beach come this summer from the Misqualnagh Drive-In. We're going to move the show down there so we can get outside and we can start getting some Misqualnagh business owners onto the show to let us know how they're doing, how they're moving through this, because let's be honest, in our lifetimes, we have never seen anything like this. So we're trying to do the best that we possibly can. So check out the show. You can watch the show on our website at westerly.live. If you go there, we have all of our archives from all of our shows. Caswell Tonight, Ben Barber's show is a social distance show. Special events that we do, our weekend concert series, that's all archived on the site. And you can also watch them live on the website as well. It's a simpler environment to watch any of our shows compared to Facebook, because let's be honest, Facebook can be very difficult to navigate sometimes. And I'm a computer geek, and I'm saying that. So go to westerly.live. You can watch it there. So that was a long show. It was a great show. We had Pastor John Savage talking about his church over in Carolina, Rhode Island. And you may have been seeing a lot of the churches around the world have been adopting virtual services to keep in touch with their congregations so they can just keep in touch and let people know that they're still out there. So for Westerly Life and Westerly Live, I'm Shane B, reminding you to enjoy your Westerly life.